Hello, everybody. I think we got some people here already. Andrea, Mrs. T, welcome, everybody. Great to see you guys here. Here's the picture that I'm going to paint tonight. We're ready when you are, Andrea says. That's great. You got call up works here. Happy to be here. Okay. Here's the reference photo that I have, and let's just jump right in with everything. Here are my paints, and I'm going to talk a little bit as I'm going along here. Let's see. I'm trying to find. Here's my reference photo, and where am I at? I'm here somewhere. There I am. Hello. Hello. So, since last we met, last Wednesday, I said I was going to rearrange the studio, and the studio is totally rearranged. It's not totally cleaned yet. I've been trying to clean it out and throw away a lot of stuff. But it's rearranged, so you're facing a different direction than you were last week. This should look a little different over here. What's behind me should look a little different. And we're ready to go with that. I still have this in the way, but I don't know. I don't have a good way to get rid of that. So we'll deal with it. I'll slunch down a little bit. The good news now is that I can sit down and paint and feel comfortable with what I do. And I sent you my discards, all the stuff I'm throwing out. So what was it, last week? We did flowers. I don't even know what we did last week. But spring has definitely sprung in my neck of the woods. And growing up for me, always the robin was one of those springtime birds that I couldn't wait to see, because it meant that spring was here and things were happening, and I was going to be able to get outside without having a giant parka on before long. And so because it made me feel like spring, I want to paint a robin tonight, and we're going to go along with that. Here is my reference. Here's my reference photo. Here is my drawing. I'm doing it on Arches paper. I just did a little bit more on it. Dana is here. Hello, Dana. Mrs. T. Everybody is here. As normal, I'm using my M-Gram paints here. If you watched along at Twitch, if you remember Twitch yesterday, you saw me using some different paint brushes. I've gone back to my Dana Squirrel Quill mop brushes, size 1, 3, and 5, and I've gone back to my Rubloff brushes here that I like so much. So we're going to use those to get on with the bird you are hung to paint. You like the bird I'm hung to paint. The robin is a fantastic little bird. So I've got a couple of things I can do with this robin. I can paint the background first on him or her. I guess it says him. Background first on him. And then put everything else on. Or I can start with the foreground first and then move on to the background. And I think that's the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to move my reference photo off to the side here, so I can see what I'm looking at. And I'm going to mix up for myself a neutral gray. Let's see, I'll probably use a nice bigger brush. This is a size 5. A neutral gray for me, easy to mix up. I'm just going to grab some ultramarine here and a little bit of this burnt umber. The two of these together make a wonderful neutral gray. It's fairly loose, not really thick over there. And I'm just gonna drop this on. Now, I did mention this is Arches paper. So with Arches, there's not really a big need to pre-wet this paper. because it holds the moisture very well. There's a lot of sizing on it, and it will hold that water up for a little bit without making a hard edge or a tide line there. So I can just go ahead and put this paint on the best way I see fit, and right on around something like this. However I want to go around this guy's eye. I feel a little justified in calling this guy a guy this time. You know what, I'm going to go around most of his eye here, because the lady robins, I think, don't have this bright of a breast, I'm pretty sure. I'm going to go right around. I know there are some lighter spots around this bird's eye, but I don't think I need to worry about that because this is going to dry pretty light, and I really want it to dry fairly light because I want to have to come back and put a second layer on here. I foresee at least 2 layers that we're going to want to put on this bird. And I'm just going to leave, not really the most jagged edge here, but a bit of a jagged edge. And you can see, well, let me rinse that out just a little bit. Restream Brett Wynn Art is here over on Twitch. Brett, welcome back. Brett just found me on Twitch this week. He's a fantastic watercolor artist of his own right. And a Navy veteran to boot. So he's got a double whammy. Not a double whammy, a double plus, actually, working for him. Since we're already here and doing a little work, I've got a little bit of wet here. I'm going to add a little bit of darkness just to the face area of this. Ellerina is here. Fun Stuff is here. Terry is here. Montana is in the house. Woo-hoo-hoo. All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. And so there is the basic head that we've got on here. Right, we've got a little darker over here. We can start with a little bit of dark. We don't need to wait and just put on a solid color here. We can do a little bit of a graded wash. And that area where I've got it a little bit darker anyways, we're going to be continuing to darken up. And then I'm hoping it's really going to lighten up over here, and it should. In fact, if we really wanted to, let's just do this. We could darken this up even more. All right, I'm just mixing my own gray here. A little. I could use Payne's gray if I wanted to. I could use Davies gray, lots of different kinds of gray. But it is nice sometimes to make your own gray. So I'm just going to put a little bit of my own gray on here. Looks kind of a little like an open mouth. The open part of the head where the beak isn't yet kind of looks like a little open mouth. Oh, I see what you're saying. Kind of looks like a little open mouth there. I got you. All right, so quite a bit darker over here by his beak, and a little lighter most of the rest of the way around. Right? Right. If you look at that reference photo, it's very much darker over here than it is on this side. So I just want to give a little bit of feeling of that right now. And since I've got this gray, and he's got these wings here, let's just go ahead and do a little bit on these wings too, huh? See what we can do here. They start up here somewhere and come down, and I'm not trying to do, you know, the greatest edge here. I want this to be a little jagged. There's some little feathers coming in and out here and there. So this line is decidedly not straight, right? And that's going to allow me to put some colors in on the other side of this, on that nice orange red breast that this robin has. Hey, fish-like. He looks fish-like for the moment. He looks fish-like. I guess I can kind of see that. He looks a little fish-like. I can kind of agree with that. Let's bring this color all the way down here. And I'm not trying to make this really dark. Right, and I'm hoping that this is going to lighten up quite a bit. Now, you all know, because you've all, most of you anyways, been on my streams before. I hope you've all been on my streams before. I hope you all come, I don't know. What's better is I hope you all continue to come back to my stream. That I don't like white highlights, right? Very, very few times do I like to put actual white highlights on things. I like my highlights to have a little bit of color to them. So I'm going to put this on very light, and I'm going to hope that it will continue to lighten. I'm looking around for my my gray value card, and since I've cleaned everything up, I can't find it, or I would pull it out and show you what the value of that is, but we'll skip that for tonight, I guess. And then I'm going to continue on down here on the tail. Only the thing I'm going to do down here is I'm going to lighten this even further, which just means I'm going to add more water to it, because if you look at the feathers down here, if you look over, oh, I'm getting used to this. If you look over here, right on that tail, right, some of these feathers are really light under there, and some of them are a little darker. So for this first coat of paint, I want to just put on these that are really light underneath here, and then we'll be able to go back later and put on these much darker values. Maybe not much darker, but darker nonetheless. Terry says, do I ever paint the background first? I do from time to time. I will admit to you, Terry, that I'm not a classically trained artist, which means I never really sat in a class and had anybody tell me, well, you need to paint this first, and you need to paint that second, and you need to do it this way or that way. Whoa, we got a big glare there, don't we? And so I just kind of developed my own way to paint my paintings. I do from time to time paint the backgrounds first, not all that often, but I do from time to time. But the thing that I don't like about painting the background first, especially in a live stream, is that then I've either got to pull out a hairdryer to dry it, because I can't then paint anything that's touching that, or it will run into it, or I've got to talk for 5 minutes until it dries. And nobody wants to hear that. That's so if I put off painting the background until the very end, then everything else will be dry. In theory, everything else will be dry. I can do that at the end, and if I have to end the stream with a wet background because that's the last thing I put on, it's not the worst thing in the world. And I've done that. I've done that before, right? It's not the worst thing in the world. So I don't know. This is kind of the way I kind of started doing it. Okay, and now let's look at this bird's head already, and just with one layer of paint here, it looks like there's a lot of detail in the gray by using the mix of ultramarine blue and burnt umber. Where's my color cards up here? Ultramarine and burnt umber. We've got this nice, really warm gray over here, and where there's more blue tacked up under here, it's much cooler. And already his head, we haven't done anything to it, and his head looks like it's got a lot of texture to it. So we're starting out on the right foot. And now, because I painted the bird first, love the t-shirt. Oh, my Minions t-shirt. Oh, when I was a very young child, I used to go around saying that to people. That's funny. My kids got me my Minions t-shirt. Actually, they got me when I wore on Twitch yesterday, which was Stormtroopers dancing Gangnam Style, which is even more hysterical than this one. Okay, so I've got a minute here while I wait for this to dry because I want to get a layer of paint on the breast of this. I could come down here and do something else, but I'm going to talk while I'm waiting for that to dry nonetheless. And I'm going to do a little bit of shameful promotion because yesterday I painted these French fries. I guess Monday and Tuesday I painted these French fries. And I think they turned out fantastic. So nice you could just reach in there and grab one and eat that off of there. So if you want to see me paint these, I don't know that this video for these is going to translate over to a video for YouTube very well. If you want to see these are the videos for these are over on Twitch. They will be there for, I believe, 10 days before they go away. And I think if anybody likes that one will be up on Etsy tomorrow, probably noonish my time before I get around to putting that up there. Just throwing that out there. I do like to drive traffic to my Etsy site. I don't sell anything. Holy cow, wait a minute, Esther. You're coming in from South Africa. Wow. That might be the furthest away that I have seen anybody on here. Holy cow, South Africa. Welcome, Esther. Welcome. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoy the painting. If you've got any questions about anything, please feel free to ask. I'm not afraid to answer anything. Just throw it out there. Okay, and so this robin is not quite dry, and I'm just feeling with the back of my pinky here a little bit. And since I've got a moment of time, I'm going to mix up a little bit more gray over here. Again, ultramarine and burnt umber. This one's going to be a little bit warmer still than the last one because this is going to go onto this little bit of wood that this guy is standing on. It's a little bit of kind of knotted wood here, not very big. The bird himself isn't very big. But I just want to put some of this on here, get a nice little bit of color on here to start with. And again, I'm not going to try to make it very dark. And I can go down about that far. Any further than that is going to be below any frame that I have for this painting, so I'm not going to worry about it. No need to paint outside of the area where it's going to be framed. Let's see if I can make out my own drawing in here. It's a little small, but if I can make that out, I think I can just get in here. And if I want to even warm this up a little bit more, I can drop a little bit more of this burnt umber in here. And this actually will help. If I make it a little bit warmer, it'll help just define it a little bit more and keep the color a little bit more away from the color of this robin himself. Right? I don't want them to be exactly the same. I'm not worried about whether they're the same in the photo or whether they're different. Right? That photo is a reference. It's not a Not trying to photocopy it, just trying to use it as a reference. So we're getting something close, and we'll call it good. And there we can see that nice, let's get a little bit coming down here, that nice bit of warmth there. Kind of changes things a little bit. Whenever I painted a bird, there's always a moment where I wonder if I should add bird poop or not. I'm going to say most of the time not. I think the only time that's appropriate maybe is if you're painting a seagull or something. They poop on everything. I don't know. My chickens. Oh my God, if I paint my chickens, they poop on everything. Okay, so I've got this, and this is distinctly away from this orange. Let's mix up a nice orange. I'm going to start with, you know what, I'm going to go heavy with this Azo orange that's already on my palette. Right? Let's pull it out. Here it is, this Azo orange, and you can kind of do a comparison if I hold it over there. It's close, but it's kind of a, it's too bright. It's kind of a, in this painting, it would be kind of a cartoon orange. It would be too bright. So we're going to tone that down with a little bit of red. I've got some other colors on my palette here. I'm just going to mix them in. But basically, I'm using Azo orange and a little bit of a Pyrrole red. And I want this to be fairly loose. Let's see. I used to feed the seagulls back when I was a truck driver. Holy cow. I would feed the seagulls more, but because I live right on the ocean, we have lots of seagulls here. But holy cow, they're so aggressive when you feed them. I'm like, I'm happy to feed you, but just kind of relax a little bit and just take a chill pill for a second. You don't have to hop onto my table where I'm eating. You don't have to, bull rush me to get something to eat. Just relax for a second. Holy cow, they're so aggressive. I used to not like seagulls at all. I really disliked them. And now I've kind of grown to appreciate them. They swarm like Hitchcock's the birds. They do. They totally do. They totally swarm. They're crazy. All right, I'm painting just to the edge of where I've got that gray. And in this instance, right, I typically don't like a white highlight in here. And I'm totally fine with painting right up to the edge, maybe even just on that edge to get rid of the white. But where these feathers come across right up here, I'm kind of okay with leaving a little bit of white. There's, those feathers have a little bit of white to them. Let me see if I can do this down a little bit more. I think you guys are a little far away. Let me recenter that, and maybe that will help you guys a little bit. They have no fear. Now you want to watch the Hitchcock movie. They have no fear. They do have no fear. They're so aggressive. We have an ordinance in our town not to feed them. Even so, I'd be okay if they were nicer about it. They get fed enough. The tourists that come into town don't seem to pay any attention to the don't feed the wildlife ordinance. And they feed them plenty. I suppose that's all right. There's enough to go around, or there has been anyways. I'll be curious to see what's going to happen with all the seagulls now that we're all in lockdown. Seagulls aren't in lockdown, but they're facing the consequences of everybody else being in lockdown. Uh-oh, I got some comments up here. All right, so I'm just putting on, before I go and read the comments, I'm just putting on a a nice bit of orange, right? I know this bird has some white coming down here in our reference photo. You can see just a little bit of feather where the feathers kind of come across. There's a little bit of white. I'm not going to worry about it. It might be a nice thing to have. If we need it, we'll get it in the next layer. Right? I'm more worried about getting some nice warm colors down here and getting something that looks nice on here, and more than I am any finished details on this level. Let's see. My place I'm isolating is on the prairie, and we have a lot of birds, but no seagulls. No seagulls there for Illyria either. Some hummingbirds. Ooh, we have hummingbirds. I should say, where I'm at, we are very lucky because we are, if you can believe this, we are. My whole town is a national bird sanctuary. So the whole town is filled up with bird lovers, and we have a ton of birds here flying all around. That one's dirty. I'm going to get rid of that. And almost any kind of bird that migrates up and down the west coast of America. I could do please close captioning or subtitles. Deborah, I don't know how to do that. Please close captioning or subtitles. I don't know how to do closed captioning or subtitles. I would be happy to if I knew where that was at, but I don't know where that is at. Deborah, I'm sorry. I don't know how to do that. But our whole town here is a national bird sanctuary, and we have birds. Any bird that comes in and migrates up and down the west coast stops here at some point for a cup of coffee or so. And in January, we have a bird festival. No. Not in January. In February, we have a bird festival, and we get people from all over the world that come into my little town. This is just a little acorn that's on here, and I'm only painting an initial layer. I just want to get some initial brown on here. I'm going to, when we come to do any extra work on this, let's see if I can turn this. Well, I can't turn this. Okay, I can tell that I'm going to have to do something about my lighting in here, because you guys can see this now, which was shiny before, but you can't see that now unless I do that because of the way the lights are. So I will work on that. I promise that. But anyways, we get people in here from all over the world to look at the birds, and the Audubon Society is here. Everybody's here to check them out, and they're here for about a week and a half, and they take over the town. It's actually really kind of cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I don't want to do any green around this, and in fact, before I paint these pine needles in the corner here, I'm going to do the background, because I don't think I'm going to be able to paint the background around these pine needles, but the background is going to be so light anyways that I'll be able to paint over them. Oh, look, I forgot a wing back here. That's fine. But I'm going to go back and start doing some details on this bird now. So I've mixed up another batch of gray here, and I've made it maybe a bit bluer. Okay, and I'm just going to come up here and drop in some of these heavier lines on this guy wherever I think they need to go. And this is where I'm really just using this picture as a reference. I'm not necessarily trying to copy it, but I do want to get the essence of it. And for me, that is more important than trying to make a photorealistic copy of this painting anyways, is that we understand how to capture the essence of our paintings, or of our subject matter. Hey, Turkey Switch is here on Twitch. What town am I in? Brett says, I am in a small little fishing village on the central coast of California, and it is called Morro Bay. I say it's a small village. It's small. I think our population is under 10,000. Something like that. It's not very much. And there's not there's not much here. When I say there's not much, what I mean to say is there's really nothing here other than fresh air, sunshine in the winter. We have a saying here that in Morro Bay, here where I live, this is where summer comes to winter, because our winters are wonderful. They're not all that cold compared to the rest of the world, or the rest of America anyways. And they are bright and sunny. And anytime you're in the sun, you feel nice and warm. So this is where summer comes to winter. The other side of that is that in the summer, we're cold and damp. But that's fine. That's okay. We welcome that, because in the summer here, when everybody else is sweltering in the heat, we're going to be sweltering in 60-degree weather. 60, no, it's warmer than that. 65, 68, maybe 70-degree weather all summer long. Just quite nice. And very, very comfortable when you come home from working inland and you drive into this fog bank, and the temperature literally will drop by 10 degrees, 15 degrees as you drive into it. And so you immediately have this, so nice and cool. It's a great way to cool down. Round brush, what size? This round brush is size 4. 4. Angie's here. Lala Art Studio. Thank you for joining us. You're jealous of my weather. Oh, here in New York. Oh, God, in New York, you have some terrible humid summers. I've spent some summers, or some summer days, anyways, in New York, and they're warm in the summer. I've been in New York City in the summer, and it does get warm. That's for sure. And the heat just never goes away. Here, our heat always goes away. Always goes away. It really is quite nice in the summer here. Nice and cool. Today was a wonderful day. We had a high of about 70 and bright and sunny. Sadiq is here from Chicago suburbs. It's been raining for 2 days nonstop. Oh my God. I can imagine. Rain. I wish, although I should say, I wish we had more rain. Even though we get a lot of fog here, we don't get any real substantial rain most of the year. Most of our moisture comes from our fog, and we don't get enough of it. So we get about a dozen rainy days a year here, which is not nearly enough for what what I would like, anyways. But we make do with it. All right, I'm just while this head is drying. I actually like the way the head is looking. It looks a little funny because I haven't painted this guy's eye in there. So when I get the eye in there, and of course when I get his beak painted on, it's gonna look quite a bit better. But I want to get some of the color down here on his chest down here. I'm just gonna drop some of this in, and then I'm gonna drop it in here where I want it to be strongest, and then I'm gonna blend it out a little bit on the edges. And I realize I look up here and it looks really red. I promise you it's not that red. It's pretty orange. There is a little bit of red in it. My camera does pick up the red quite a bit. And that's kind of okay. And you see me reaching over to the side there. All I'm doing is I'm trying to clean my brush out. I don't necessarily need any more moisture on my brush. But I want to get any of that paint residue off. And then I tap it on here to get any moisture off, just so I can just have a little bit of moisture on here to spread the edge of that paint out. Just want it to come out a little bit, maybe a little bit more over here. And I've got to be careful I don't get too carried away and get up into his head up here, which is just a tiny bit wet yet. But by doing this, we're gonna add a little bit of depth to his chest here. And then if I need to, if I don't think it's quite right, I can always add a little bit of color back in here. But we're going to end up getting a little bit of mottled color here, and it's going to help with the overall look of this by the time we're done. We're going to do this again and again. And it's just going to give him a little bit of more texture, more like there's some. It's not just a barrel shape in there, is what I'm trying to say, right? It's not just one big barrel. There's more to it than that. Those feathers have a little life to them as they go around a little bit. So I'm just going to drop a little bit of color on there and make sure that goes in. In this instance, I just dropped that color on. I'm doing that so that I don't get a back run in there, really, on that one. And then over here, right along this edge, I'm going to make this quite a bit darker over here. And I'll do the same thing. And then there's going to a little bit of lighter color, right? It's not white for me. There might be white feathers over there. It's not white for me on here. But it's definitely an area where we can introduce a little variation. And then we'll get this variation on here, and then we'll reassess after this dries up a little bit. Actually, I can tell you I need a little bit more here. That's a little too light for me in there. Just from looking at it, just from me looking at it, I don't like quite how light that looked, but that's okay. And then I want to make some of this right up underneath his head, right? If I need to darken this up a little bit, I'm just going to add just a touch of my maroon perylene. I'm going to add just a touch of this underneath these feathers here. Something like that. And I'm going to blend these out also. Right, I used to do a lot more of this. Every painting I used to do, I would put paint on and take paint off, put paint on and take paint off. And then I kind of got away from it a little bit and just started moving it around. But I think in this instance, it does kind of require putting it on and taking it off to some extent. Right? And okay, so now we've got a nice base on there. So we can tell, and you can see, just like, and if you don't like it somehow, you know what, it's watercolors, you grab it and pull it out. As long as it's still wet, we can play with it all we want. Right, and you can see he's got that nice dark line, just like in the there's like in the reference photo over there. Adding maroon perylene. Okay, spelling, M-A-R-O-O-N, maroon. P-E-R-Y-L-E-N-E. P-E-R-L-Y-E-N-E. Maroon perylene. Here it is. I use it to darken up lots of reds and oranges with. I think it's a wonderful color. I don't know that I would use it straight out of the tube in this color. I don't know that there's a lot of applications for it like that. But using it to darken some oranges or some yellows and some reds instead of putting a blue on there, I think is a much better option. Let's see. Oh, you guys are still translating for Deborah. That's so nice. Sadiq, thank you for doing that. He's strategically dipping in color to the shape of the belly of the bird. Well, I didn't know I was strategically doing it. I was just kind of throwing it on there. You never would have guessed that spelling. It's a weird spell. It is a weird spelling. It really is a weird spelling. Okay, so now I'm gonna mix up some gray here. I was gonna say I'm gonna step away from that bird for a second, but before I do anything, I'm gonna mix up some more of my gray here. Right? If I wanted to make it a warmer gray, I add more burnt umber. I've got that in my way. If I want to make it a cooler gray, I just add a bit more of the ultramarine, right? The French ultramarine. But in this instance, I want it pretty neutral because I'm going to come in and put in a little gray on this tail down here. And I guess this is one of the nice things about making your own gray this way is if you can see down here, and you can't because it's too far away. It's too small. But the ultramarine, the M. Graham ultramarine blue, French ultramarine, has a bit of granulation to it. And so you can see it drop out a little bit in the texture of the paper. And it really adds a nice little bit to it. And the Payne's gray wouldn't necessarily do that. It just doesn't quite do it the same way. So it's kind of a nice A nice little thing there. And then just going to add a little bit to the wood down here. But I just looked at the clock. Do I talk too much? Am I jabbering away too much? Ultramarine has texture good for granulation. It's not a super amount of granulation. There are others that granulate more than the M-Gram Ultramarine, but it has a really fine granulation, and it drops out when you make your own gray like this. A really nice touch that you don't get if you're using a Payne's Gray or something. You don't own Payne's Gray. Like when you grow up, you'll get some. I own Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray is a nice convenience color, but it's not a necessary color. I got this little crack that runs in here. So it's a convenience color. If you're in a hurry or you don't want to take the time to mix your own gray, I get it. I would never say, "Oh, that's terrible. How could you possibly use Payne's Gray or anything?" But whatever. We all have our own things, and Payne's Gray really does have some nice qualities to it. It's just maybe not the nicest quality that you could get. There are probably some better qualities, and I think I made this just a little too dark, or darker than I wanted anyways. Let me just see if I can pull a little bit of this off while it's still a little bit wet. And while I'm in this area, I'm going to just add some darks into this little tiny pine cone here. Right, and maybe give a little bit of a look to this so you can see what it actually is. This is very small down here. So I don't even know how much you're going to be able to see of this. Right? How much this is really going to help you out. This is mostly me narrating, painting a pine cone, which I already know is not the most exciting thing in the world. It looks like he's using the gray on the pine cone. On this pine cone, the pine cone is almost pure burnt umber on this level here. Right, and I want to get some nice dark in here. This is the way I'm going to do this one. I want to get some nice dark in here. I want to define a few of these cones. I guess that's what you would call it. And then I'm going to go over it with a glaze at the end and cover most of it back up. Okay, and this feather has dried, and so now I'm going to go and paint this feather over here. I'm going to mix a little bit more of my gray. Right, maybe a little colder, but definitely a little stronger. I want this one to be just a bit stronger. Because I want there to be a definite break between these two feathers. I want you to, when you look at this, I want you to know that there are two distinct feathers down here and not just one big glob of something that could be a feather or two. And so I think you can see that there. Wow, that I look up there and it really looks blue. The camera really picks up something that's blue. Focal weighty. Using cooler gray, stronger strength. Any tips? Any tips for watercolor? This looks like 2 distinct feathers, not one big glob. Perfect. That's what it should look like. Hopefully I did it right. And I'm going to come in up here. And up here, I'm going to define a bit of a feather. Right? And I'm going to get kind of a twofer here. There we go. And up here, I'm going to also, it's dark up there. Whether this is an actual feather or not, I don't know. But I'm going to make this a bit darker up here. And then I'm going to blend this down a little bit. Still using my same number 4 brush here. And hopefully this will look like I've got a number of feathers stacked up right here. Hopefully, with any luck at all. And then when that's dry, before I do anything else, then I'll go back and do the other one. But I do, you know, last time, nobody mentioned it to me. Come on. There we go. Last time I forgot to get this feather back here. And so I'm just going to drop that in right now. Right, this little bit of the wing back here. And I'm okay if it's a little darker. It's a little different. I don't mind so much on this. I know I've been a stickler for value at times in the past, but I'm not going to worry so much about value on this one because I'm gonna redarken this. These should be a little lighter than the inside of the wings, but something like that. Has anybody tried texture medium from Winsor Newton? I have not tried. Oh, Millie's here from New Jersey. Welcome, Millie. Another girl, a girl on YouTube painted a robin earlier today. I think I'll put the baby robin to the left of this one and make it begging for food. Oh, there you go. That'd be cool. Oh, that'd be a cool thing to do. Okay, where am I at? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just dropping in color and having fun with my painting here. I'm going to warm this up a little bit down towards the edge here. And if I add, I want to add a little bit more to this little stick here to try and make it look like it's a little bit more than just some kind of stick hanging out here, right? Right? Maybe there was a little bit of life in this at one point, and it's not got quite so much now. But this nice bird perch is helping it a little bit. A little bit of color there. Let's see. Peggy, there's a Peggy here. I don't see. Oh, Peggy Bow from North Carolina. Wow. A lot of Eastern Time Zone people. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you here. I don't often expect that people from Eastern Time Zones are going to show up. It's getting late in the evening for everybody. I suppose, I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but I suppose that the fact that most people are sheltered at home may help with the East Coast viewers because I don't have to get up quite as early in the morning. Okay, I'm going to paint this wing over here, but I'm going to Millie, you've been watching me for years? Really? That's great. First of all, thank you. I appreciate it. All right, I'm going to darken this wing here, and I think when this wing gets darker to match the bit darker over here, that his red breast here will come into focus a little bit more. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And whether that works or not, we're going to find out. So, Millie, if you've been watching me for years, you know that I kind of just... oftentimes, I kind of wing it a little bit. Yes, yes, he's upside down. It's just easier for me to do a stroke away from me than it is to try to do a stroke towards me, is the only reason I'm doing this. There's no real good reason for doing this upside down other than that. It's just, it's a lot easier for me. And then we'll flip him back around the right way in just a second. It won't be too long. I do flip my paintings less than I used to. So I have a viewer. In fact, she just commented not long ago. She used to comment all the time on my videos, and I appreciate the fact that she took the time to comment. But she would always say, I can't stand that you flipped it around. It's so distracting. I wish you would learn to paint properly so you don't have to do that. And I'm like going, oh, come on. I'm like, I'm doing the best I can here. All right, I got enough on there. Let's flip him back around, and all of a sudden, look, pow! Wow, look, it looks so much better. It was worth the wait. It was worth having him upside down to do that. We got that little bit of light on a couple of his feathers there, the ends of his pin feathers there. Right, we got some nice color up here. These kind of come to the edge. I think it looks great. Let's see. I've always been a night owl, but this is ridiculous. Oh, yes, everybody's sleep schedule is all the way off. It is so much, Millie, it is so much easier to flip. It is. Some people say that flipping it makes it so you can see things you don't see with it right side up. You know, a lot of people say that when you are drawing something, draw it upside down. Draw it upside down because you'll draw it better upside down because your brain doesn't have the preconceived notions about what it's supposed to look like. And there's a lot of truth to that. I've done that, and it works. It does work. It really works surprisingly well. That was the bit put out by the people who did the drawing on the right side of the brain book. They were big proponents of drawing upside down, and I tried it, and it works. It really does. Surprisingly, it really does work. Why is this, I don't know, this is kind of looking like an Oriole. I don't know why it reminds me of an Oriole. I guess it's just the gray or the dark color here anyways, and the orange kind of reminded me of an Oriole, but we've got some nice feathers under there now. Yeah, fun stuff. You normally only notice you've done something wrong once you complete it. Once you're completely done and turned upside down. That's funny. That's pretty funny. Okay, let's see. I'm going to, oh man, I'm going to make myself a little room over here. I don't need much. There we go. But I need to get a little bit of yellow going here. So there is a bit of cold yellow on this bird's beak, right? If I look at the reference photo over here, let me do this. Let me show you this one. All right, if I look here, there is quite a bit of cold yellow in here. So I want to make sure I get a little bit of that. And I'm going to try to do most of this beak in one go. I think we can do quite a bit of it in one shot here. So I'm going to start with this cold-ish yellow, right? And already it's looking good. Let's see. You guys were watching somebody paint something upside down, and then he flipped it over, and it was great. There's so many unbelievable artists that do stuff like that. It's crazy. I don't know how they do it. I guess it's a lot of practice and a lot of talent, I would suspect. So I'm gonna drop in a little bit of a warm yellow, almost an orange here. Right, I think I'm just mostly using gamboge on here to give me just this little bit of warmth on here. And I'm going to drop just the tiniest bit of our gray color way out here on the end of the bill. Beak. End of his beak. It's not a water bird. It doesn't have a bill. It's a terrestrial bird. It has a beak. And I think that is that. I think that is just about going to do that beak right there in one shot. Dropping a gamboge, G-A-M-B-O-G-E. You have it spelled correctly. Gamboge. And for those of you who are interested in such thing, the pigment is pigment yellow 151 and pigment orange 62. That is a Winsor and Newton color. Who gathered watching the? Oh yeah. You guys love watching the people who gather to watch those crazy videos of people in their street art and the painting things upside. You know what I actually like? I love watching the spray paint people. I know they normally do a ship or a space scene or something like that. And the scene itself isn't always that big of a deal for me, but I love watching the process of them putting a coffee can on and spray painting around it, and then putting some newspaper on it, and then spray painting around it, and pulling that off. And they use all these innovative things to make their paintings. And I'm always like, how do you think to do that? I don't understand. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of a glaze on this guy. I like where he's going, but it's a little light down here and maybe not quite dark enough up here. So I want to put a little bit of a glaze on here. And I'm going to do it fairly quickly. Oops, maybe I'm not quite in where you can see here. And I've just mixed up an orange, and it's probably not exactly the same as it was before, but it's going to be close. And I'm going to flip it this way. And I'm working quickly so I don't raise any of the paint on the layer underneath. And up here, more water. Maybe a little bit more paint up here, but mostly water up here. And I think that's going to sink him down a little bit. That's going to settle him in. Right? I just want him to look like he's a little more substantial than he was. I think he just didn't. It just wasn't looking quite big enough, substantial enough there. So I think that glaze is going to do wonders for us. Okay, now I'm going to paint his eye, and I'm going to get a smaller brush here. And in this instance, I'm looking at it. I am going to go with a Payne's Gray. Actually, I'm going to go with my puddle of neutrals over here. I don't really ever seem to clean that all the way out. But it looks like it's mostly Payne's Gray over there. And then I'm going to draw his eye in there. And I want to use Payne's Gray because I know Payne's Gray is going to give me a little bit of color, but it's going to dry light. And I want it to dry light because I'm going to put a second bit of paint on here, and that's going to be the second bit is going to be the dark in his eye, and this first layer here is going to be basically the highlight in his eye. And somebody asked, Millie says, is my desk at an angle? Yes, my desk is at an angle. It's probably at, I haven't measured it, and it's changed over time, I will readily admit. But I would guess it's at roughly 20 degrees or so. Maybe 25 degrees. Somewhere in that range. And yes, it is slanted, so everything comes down. And I do that. There's a good reason I do that, right? And this is a fun tip for everybody. I do that because watercolor can be frustrating enough on its own, right? And you put water on a piece of paper and it runs everywhere, right? And we're basically just adding water to paper. That's what watercolors is. Okay, so I want to impose my will. I want to impose my will onto this the watercolor paper, as best I can. So in order to do that, I have raised my desk up a little bit. So I can't change the properties of the paper. I can't change the property of the paint. But I can control the way that the paint flows. So by raising my desk up a little bit, I can ensure that the paint will never flow up. It can only flow down. So I know that if I want something dark, right, and I want to make sure it stays dark and the top to be light, I have to start at the bottom and paint up. And that will ensure any of the paint that starts at the bottom mostly is going to stay at the bottom. And if I want to do a more of a graded wash or a flatter wash, then I can start at the top, and any of that paint will slowly run down the page, and I know it's going to run in one direction, and I can do that. So that's why I have that at a bit of an angle here. Okay, and it's not for everybody. Painting at an angle can be difficult. It does have certain drawbacks to it, but it also has quite a few benefits, and it's those benefits that I want to kind of glom onto. That are going to help me out. So that's why I have my desk at an angle. Let's see. Apparently he starts painting from the bottom. Oh yeah. You're explaining how I do that. And Deborah, you're saying fine lines on feathers with a black marker. I have a fine black marker here. I don't do a lot of that anymore unless I'm doing like some urban sketching or something. My problem with it is not, people do it and people do some wonderful things by doing that. My problem with doing that and why I don't do that is because the marker, whatever pen you're going to use, the intensity of that ink is probably an order of magnitude stronger than whatever paint you've used. And so oftentimes, it just looks out of place. And because it looks so crazy from time to time, I don't always use it. Let's see. Illyria, you've only painted on a flat surface. Yeah, there's nothing wrong. Don't run out and try to paint things on an angle because I said that I enjoy it better or I get some control out of it. It's not for everybody. It has its own drawbacks to it. Right? It does have its own benefits, but if you want to try, what you can do is you can just put your paper, tape it to a board, or leave it in the book it came in. Right? If you have one of these. Right? If your paper is in a pad like this or like this one, just set a couple of books up here and leave your paper on there and paint with it like that. And it's exactly the same as this, and you'll learn in a hurry whether it's for you or not. It's nice to be able to have that little bit of control. But by gaining that control, you might lose some of the spontaneity of watercolor. Right? Part of the cool part of watercolor is that it is so crazy. It goes everywhere. It goes anywhere it wants to. And right, I force it to go the way I want it to, and maybe I lose a little bit of the spontaneity of watercolor by doing that. I don't know. Maybe not. But I personally am willing to make that trade-off for the control that I have in the style that I paint or that I want to paint. The style that I think I paint in. I hope I paint in, right? So there's always that trade-off. So I'm just going to put a little bit of shading on this guy's legs here. I promise you, where are we at? Oh, we're an hour and 15. We're not far off from being done with this. I tell people I can tell that we're getting further into the video because I start to get tired and I start to lose my train of thought from time to time because I get up early. Been up since about 5:30 this morning and been on the go most of the day. And so I get a little tired after an hour or so of this, but we're so close. This is what happens. We're so close Then we're going to push on through and finish this. I always try to pick, this is funny to me, I always try to pick, here comes the other wing. That's it, I'm done with the other wing. That's all you get. I always try to pick a painting that I think I can do in about an hour. Yeah, I don't know whether I can or whether I can't. I don't know, but I always pick something that I think I can do in about an hour. And then sometimes it takes me an hour and 10 minutes, and sometimes it takes me 2 hours and 10 minutes. I guess there have been a few times we've had to go for 2 nights. I always try to get it done in about an hour. Pick something that I think I can get done in about an hour. All right, here comes his eye. And when you get his eye on here, this is when he's really going to come to life. And I know I'm flipping it about. I know. But more than anything else, this eye is one of the most important parts of this bird. This eye is where he gets all of his, most of his personality. There he goes. There's his eye. Now he's got kind of an inquisitive kind of a look to himself. Just a little bit of this dark here on his bill, his beak, not his bill. And I'm going to grab a big old brush now. You like to add fun stuff. You like to add eyes sooner rather than later. Interesting. Nice eyes, thank you. Especially for people, I always add my eyes late. I don't know why. That one I don't know why. I don't know that I've ever paid any attention to why I would add it sooner rather than later. Okay, so the green I'm mixing up here is mostly cobalt green here. And I'm going to add a little bit of gamboge to it to warm it up. It's springtime. Excuse me, my cobalt green is a cool green. I wouldn't say it's a cold green, but it's a cool green. And that gamboge is going to warm it right up. And since I don't want, since I don't want a heavy background here, I want a very light background. I'm going to put it on very lightly and in a hurry. And that will allow me because it's going to be so light. Okay, so here's one of the problems you see with a slanted table. Now I've got a big puddle right there, right? And if I don't do something about it, it's going to drip, and I don't want a drip. So that's one of the drawbacks of having a slanted table, but it also, is one of the benefits. If you like that kind of painting, then this is perfect. Okay, quick background, quick. Hop to it. Maybe keep that nice and warm through here. All right, I don't need anything specific in here. This background is all out of focus. We could draw a few lines in here while it's still wet. If we really need to designate some sticks or twigs or something like that. Not necessary to do, but what I do need to do is keep this edge wet so I don't get any tide lines. I could mix in a little different color. I could vary it as I go along. Hopefully, I don't have to vary it too much. And the value of this should, when it's dry, should not be more than a value of 3, right? A third should not be more than a third of full strength. In fact, it probably shouldn't be more than a quarter of full strength, right? It needs to be light, light, light. We don't want to take away from this bird. This bird is the focus of this painting, of course. I mean, it's the only thing in the painting. And if we paint the background of value that's close to the value of the bird, then we risk the viewer's eye not knowing where to go. Okay, so if you're doing a background and you're just doing a quick background to get some color on it, right, that's going to vary with a different background that you might paint. But if you're doing it to put some color on something that's out of focus, something that you're not worried about, then it's got to be light. It's got to be something that is not the focus of the painting, right? It's just got to be there to fill up space, and that's all we want it for. Now, what helps us in this painting is that, right, the green and red are opposites, complements, and so any green that goes on here is going to help to push this bird off the page. And already, right, I haven't done anything else to it, and already it looks like this bird is alive and coming right out. This is so lovely. I'm impressed. Oh, thank you so much, Mrs. T. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so I don't want to do a whole lot more with this bird, right? I like basically where I'm going with it. I do need to do some on the toes. Let me do some toes. This guy needs a pedicure. Something terrible. Right? Obviously, he hasn't been to the spa in a while. And his feet are terrible. He really needs a pedicure here. Something, anything. So while I'm waiting for this green to dry, and while I'm, how do I do this? How am I going to do this? While I'm doing this, that's too bright, too bright, too bright. Hoping that I don't touch the green and then make a big mistake here. Let me just drop on a few shadows on his toes here. And that's going to help to give that a little bit of life. I don't do fine lines all that well, or, I don't feel like I do fine lines all that well, and these toes are some fine lines, so bear with me a little bit. Oh, I knew it. Just bear with me a little bit and I'll get these toes done really quickly. In fact, so quickly I think I'm done with them right there. All I want to do is let's see. Melissa Phillips, sorry, I missed tonight's show. Daughter wanted a movie. Oh, that's a great reason to miss any other show, is because your daughter wanted to spend time with you. Totally understand. We're almost done with this guy. I think he's looking pretty good. What do you guys think? Is he looking good? I say that doing anything with your daughter is a good thing while I'm waiting for this to dry. Look what I have here. Ha ha! Yeah, look at that. All right, it's not in tune right now. I just got it. This is so I can play with my daughter. Ha ha! She is, of course, a lot better than me. A lot better than me. And she's always going to be a lot better than me. And I'm totally fine with that. I hope she's always better than me. But we're going to have a lot of fun playing that together. I told her that I would learn to play Jingle Bells and several other Christmas songs so that we can go caroling this winter, provided we're in a caroling state of mind. I don't know what's going to happen come Christmas, but we're planning on it. Okay, I guess while I'm waiting for this to dry, I'm just waiting for this background to dry, I'm going to take my same color. I'm going to put in, I love phthalo green. I'm going to put in a little phthalo green into the mix here. And phthalo green is a little strong on its own, so I'm going to mix in a bit of this gamboge, and I get a lovely color. Look at that. Look at how beautiful that color is. Wow, it looks crazy bright still on there. But you can see how that could be a good pine color, right? Pine is a nice bright color. I promise you it's not quite as bright as it looks on there. Let's see. The bird looks great. Light background makes the bird stand out, right? Right. It looks very nice. 300 pounds of watercolor paper or 140 pounds. This is Arches watercolor paper. It doesn't have a mark on it. I just looked. It doesn't have a mark on it. But this is Arches watercolor paper. This is 140 pound. So, and it's rough paper. All right, let's see. If I put a little bit here, let's see how much this is going to bloom out. Not too bad. You can just put on a few of... Oh, that's a little worse there. A few pine bristles here. Maybe some come up this way. I don't know. If we need to darken these up... okay, so here we go. If we need to darken this up, I have on this... let me do it this way. I have on this olive green right here. And olive green is... You know, I keep saying all these are great colors. I like olive green. But just like I use the maroon to darken up reds, oftentimes I use that olive green to darken up greens with because it just works so nicely. All right, and we're just going to put a few of these little things on here. We've got a bit of a dark area. I'm just going to darken that up really under there. Right, and if these bloom out just ever so slightly, I'm not going to worry all that much about it. Get some lights and some darks in there. Get a little bit of this lighter green up here. And mix in a little bit of darker. And I don't know, that might be about it for me. I don't need to do too much there. I guess what I do want to do is, come on brush. I could get a little bit of, if I want to fiddle with it a little bit, right? I can darken a little bit more of some of these under here. It didn't come out quite as dark as I had hoped. But I don't know that I'm going to gain a whole lot by doing that. And I'm just looking, and I know I'm not going to gain a whole lot by doing that. I've got one other thing to do that I know I need to do. And here's where I'm going to mix up some black instead of picking up that black marker. Because this guy's got a couple of little talons. All right, he's got one there. He's got one there. One sticking out there. Oh, he's got one here that comes down this way. He's probably got one on the end of each toe, I would imagine. Something like that. I don't know. Probably means he's got one right about here, one right about here, and one somewhere there. All right, there we go. I think that is what I'm going to do with this guy. I'm going to sign him. And I am going to call this guy done. There is my springtime robin. I hope you guys all liked this. Let's see. I have a cockatiel with Deborah. You have a cockatiel with you. Wow, that's cool. That's all I've got for you guys tonight. Thank you all for being with me down below here on YouTube. Links to my website, Instagram, Twitter, my Etsy store. I'm going to say it again. I am trying to make the studio completely self-sufficient. If you would like to give a donation, there are links for donations down below or on my website, or better yet, buy some fries. I'll have that up on Etsy tomorrow. If anybody wants some fries. I had a great time with you all this evening. We will be back here again next week, Wednesday, going on YouTube again. Until then, everybody, thanks for joining me this evening. I had a great time with you, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.